Hi everybody, so this is a video that I should have done years ago because it's actually really important, but this can be seen as an addendum to one of my other recent videos covering fitting issues, including gaping problems. So if you haven't seen that video, then I suggest you watch that one first. So I'll link it right up there in the corner for you. But one of my buddies on YouTube, Lady Tiger Lily, she also does corset videos. She had made a video a couple of months ago called Measuring for an Off-the-Rack Corset, and there is a really crucial truth that she mentioned. She said that she can cinch down to certain reductions in different corsets even though they are the same size. So if a corset is, say, a size 20, she might be able to close one and not the other, because due to the cut and the make of the corset, they have different amounts of curve to them. So unfortunately, a lot of the time, you don't really know the ratios of a given off-the-rack corset that you purchase online, and you're expected to just purchase a piece based on your natural waist size. But here's the thing. It doesn't have to be this way, and in my mind, it shouldn't be this way. When people purchase a standard size corset from my website, it's pretty much mandatory that the client has to give me their natural underbust, waist, and hip measurements, as well as the length of their torso. So I can check their numbers against the corset that they're interested in buying. So it's a lot easier to check the measurements first before you buy it than it is for them to buy the corset, wait several days or weeks for it to be delivered, and then try it on and realize it doesn't fit right, and then having to spend all that money to send it back and everything. It just saves so much time and money for you to just check first before you buy. So here are a couple of my corset patterns. They're all stapled together, but every corset starts this way pretty much, unless you are taking a pattern off of a different corset or you're drafting off of a mannequin. This is pretty much what every corset starts with. So if you draft a pattern, then you know the measurements of the underbust, the waist, and the hips, and you also know the length of the corset because you're the one who measured it out and created the flat pattern to make the corset out of. So when you're scaling this pattern up and down to create the different sizes for a range of standard size corsets, you know the measurements there. And even if you don't, it's very easy to just take a corset and measure it at the top edge, which is usually the underbust area, the waist, which is clearly marked by the waist tape in a properly made corset, and the hip area, so that you can get those measurements in each size. So in my mind, there should be no reason that these companies are not giving you the measurements of the underbust, waist, and hips together, and the length of all their corsets, because somewhere they have that on record in the first place. But if for whatever reason they don't actually have these measurements, then it's actually very easy, and it doesn't take very long to do at all, to actually take the measurements from each size of a corset. So I'm going to show you how to do that at the end of this video if you want to measure your own corsets. So basically, once these companies have compiled the measurements from their corsets in all different sizes, they can put them in a sizing table or a sizing chart, and you can compare the corset's measurements with your own measurements to see if it will fit reasonably well. So some examples of people who actually provide sizing charts are Méchant, Electra Designs, and Isabella Corsetry. So these are all examples of corsetteers that provide a size chart for their standard size corsets. And you can see I have an Isabella Corsetry Victorian underbust here. So I'll provide links down in the description below to all of these websites that I'm mentioning, so you can see how each one provides a size chart or a different way of providing the general measurements or ratio that you would find in their corsets, so that you know whether it would fit properly or not. So some other companies, they prefer not to have a table with the hard measurements of the corset, but instead they'll mention what your measurements should be within a certain range. So I've seen some makers like Starker's Corsetry and Morgana Femme Couture use these in their listings. For instance, they'll say, they're selling a size 26 corset, so your waist should be between 28 and 32 inches, your ribs should be between 30 and 34 inches, and your hips should be between 36 and 40 inches. So if your natural measurements fall within that range, there's a good chance that the corset will fit you. And yet some other companies will not focus on absolute measurements, but they'll instead focus on proportion, like Orchard Corset. So right here I have my tester corset. It's the tan cotton CS 426 from Orchard Corset. And basically when you look on Orchard Corset's website, they'll say that for the level 3 silhouette, the rib cage here, the underbust measurement will be 5 to 6 inches larger than the closed closed waist measurement of the corset. And then the bottom here, the low hip measurement, will be 10 to 12 inches larger than the closed waist of the corset. So doing some simple math, this means that if you're looking at a size 30 corset, then the underbust will likely be between 35 and 36 inches in circumference, and then the hips, the low hips here, will likely be between 40 and 42 inches in circumference. So typically off the rack corsets, they're made really quickly. So the measurements aren't likely to be as precise as a custom corset. That's why you get a general range. But at least within that range, you'll know whether your natural measurements fall within there. So as a general summary, there are so many instructions online showing you how to measure your body for an off-the-rack corset. But as far as I have seen, there are no instructions on how to measure your corset and see if it's compatible with your body. And I will be changing that now. And I hope it goes without saying at this point, but if you see a corset being sold exclusively by the small, medium, large system and they don't actually give the measurements of the corset, or if you see an underbust corset or a cincher being sold by the bust size, which is not related at all, then it's probably a good idea to avoid those corsets. Moreover, for off-the-rack corsets, many companies will still only take your waist circumference into consideration, and I propose that off-the-rack corset companies implement a 3 to 4 point measuring system at minimum. Underbust circumference, waist circumference, hip circumference, and the vertical torso length from under the breast to the lap, and this will help to determine the best fit. And lastly, in my older reviews, I had only talked about the silhouette of the corsets, but I didn't actually take the measurements of those older corsets. In the coming weeks, I will be going back and measuring almost all of the standard size corsets that I still own, recording their proportions and placing them in a table on my website, which might give you a different understanding of the fit of each corset. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next part.